tackle things ready for the fall, and just, I got back from sockeye fishing actually. What day is sockeye fishing? I was up there Monday and Tuesday, up at the Brewster Pool, up there dinking around having some fun. It's past Wenatchee, probably 30 minutes, 40 minutes, up in central and northern Washington there. So,
really work on his hand instead of working in the bar.
So I'm originally from Eastern Oregon where it's that hot, but that's been 23 years, so I'm not acclimated. I grew up a migrant worker, so from the time I was 10 all the way through high school, I worked in the fields pulling weeds, so the sun was no big deal. And now I'm like, oh man, there's no way, there's no way. It was hot. Look, man, I'm even bundled up on that sunny day.
There you go.
Yeah.
Keep the sun up.
That's exactly what I'm doing.
So you guys probably all know who Pro is. There's not a whole lot of us here. If you guys want to move up front a little bit, you may not even have to use a microphone. Obviously he fishes out here a lot, been a guide a long time, good friend of the company. Makes really cool products. He's going to tell us about them.
Let's do it.
That'll be really good.
Yep.
You can use that or not.
Yeah.
That's how you feel that way.
I just tell them I yell all the time. That's what I do.
Exactly. You yell at customers, you yell at kids.
Kids, everybody gets yelled at.
You and me once in a while.
I'm at a level 8 at all times. Right on. Appreciate it, Mark. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So again, my name is Pro Escobedo. I'm the owner of VIP Outdoors. Started VIP Outdoors, 18 years ago now. Again, from Eastern Oregon. Came over to Western Oregon University where I graduated from. Go Wolves. Stuck around. Took a job as a project manager. It was great, but I love to fish. Okay? I love the outdoors. I've always been competitive, and once I completed my athletic career, I've just always had the drive to compete, and I was able to find that in the outdoor space, and I still continue that today. Like Mark said, yeah, as far as out of Buoy 10, I've been guiding 15 years. This would be the 16th year out here in Astoria. So, in that 15 years, I've seen a lot, I've experienced a lot, and it changes every year. And every year, I just put a little bit more in that data bank, that mental data bank. You know, with the last seminar, we were talking about a lot of stats, a lot of statistics, a lot of graphs, a lot of numbers, great information. There's two parts to fishing Buoy 10 when it comes to safety. There's the pre-planning, which all the information we just got in the last seminar is great for your pre-planning. But then there's the experience part that you're referring to when you're talking about crossing the south tip and things like that. All that comes down to experience. Just like any other class you've ever been to, in high school, college, wherever it was, you have lecture and you have lab, okay? I hate lecture. I graduated college with, I won't tell you what GPA, but I ended with a very, very good athletic career, so I'm a lab guy, okay? So let's get started. Whoa, touchy button here. First things first, Buoy 10, the very first thing that needs to come to mind is safety. And I dug online, I can't believe I couldn't find it. The picture I wanted to put here is the very familiar picture of my 28-foot woolly nemesis sitting on top of a white boat perpendicular. Okay? That is a picture that I honestly, I looked it up for 2 days trying to find it. Because that experience, that phone call I got that day that was taking place, was probably the most heart-sinking feeling I have ever felt in my life. And the reason it was, the first thing that came to mind was the first thing that came to mind when I heard about that boat this morning. I hope they got one. Boats, there it is. Boats, can I see that? Boats, gear, everything can be replaced. Motors, everything can be replaced. What can't is human life. Okay? And the people that you leave behind that it has a long-term effect on. So safety comes number one. England has a great supply of safety products here. And if you walk out of here today, and if you need something from your boat, and if you don't pick it up, it's on you. Because you are here, pick it up. Life jackets, if they have a tear, replace them. If you have a Type 4, just regular little throw pad with the 2 arms, get rid of that thing. Get yourself a throw ring. If you are going to be crossing the bar, you need to have 2 different types of PDS per person on that boat. Number 1, the Type 2 that you wear at all times. That does not come off when we're in this section of water. Number 2 is a Type 1. That Type 1, I suggest you wear them. If you don't, they need to be stowed away in an area that does not lock, that does not even have the capabilities of locking. They're better off in an open compartment when you're in big water. Had it not been for all the safety equipment that I carry on all my boats, that day would have ended up a lot different. Okay? Every one of my boats has 8 Type 2s and 8 Type 1s. Every one. All right? So, safety, number 1, plan ahead. Plan ahead. Know what you're going to do during the day. And a lot of times, what do? We get down here to Buoy 10, let's rock and roll. And what happens? That dang phone just starts blowing up. The bite was awesome here. The bite was awesome over there. And you don't know what the hell's going to happen the next day because you didn't put your plan together because you got everybody chirping in your ear about which way to go. And you don't even know when you leave the marina. That is the least safe thing you can do. Put your plan together. Sure, we could adjust. We can make adjustments throughout the day. But have a pre-plan before you go. Let people know, especially if you're coming out for a weekend, let people know what your plan is. Okay? Hey, I'll tell the wife. The day before I go, it's like, yeah, the ocean's looking really good tomorrow. We're going to cross the bar. I plan on being out there for 1 tight series, 2 side series, whatever it is. Okay? I'm a grown-ass man, but I still tell my wife exactly what's taking place the next day, even when I'm out here taking care of business. Okay? Set a good plan, write it down, call somebody, let somebody know your plan before you go. Game plan with the tides. That's where I base my entire plan for the day is on tides. And the 2 things when I'm talking about tides, number 1 is safety. Number 2, I've been doing it long enough and I have the experience to where I know where those fish should be on those tide series. And we'll get into that a little bit later as well. Okay? Safety checklist. Each one of my vessels, laminated sheet with the safety checklist. I go through that consistently. As soon as something goes bad, I mark it. A little Sharpie marker. Got to replace that. That's the first thing we do when we come off our vessel. We replace that piece of equipment that needs to be replaced. Check your fire extinguishers, everything else. Safety briefing for all passengers. I don't care if you're a guide or you're buddy fishing. When you step on that boat, I guarantee the people standing in front of you or sitting behind you may not have and probably don't have the same experience on the water that you do. Fill them in just a little bit. Give them a quick briefing of, hey, guys, today we're going to be wearing our Type 2s. This is potential water we're going to be in. Here's my throwable. Here's how we use it. Here's the fire extinguishers. Here's the battery shut-off switch. Here's how to drive the boat. All basic information takes 5 minutes. Takes 5 minutes. But when I do that, which is every time I get on my boat, I can feel the energy and the anxiety of the people in the boat just go. Just having that little bit of knowledge to know what's going to take place goes a long ways. So inform your customers in front of you of what's going to take place for the day, what to expect, okay? Pay attention and avoid driving in crowds. I wasn't there that day. Based on that picture, based on looking at my boat and everything else, I know what happened that day. That boat should not have been running.
There that day.
You were there that day. I guarantee I know what happened. Okay? That boat should have never been in that position to strike anybody, period. Period. And I see it all too often. What happens? Boom, got a fish. Smack it in the head. We got to go back up there. We got to get another one. Turn it around. Boom, full throttle. You're going. What are you doing? You're driving. You're not even looking forward, but you're looking at people around you to find fish. Who's got a net in the air? Oh look, there's a school, it's going that way or this way. Let's zip in right behind it. No. No. Pull all the way around. Go way outside. When you guys see my North River, I am very rarely even around people, fishing wise. I'm always off by myself. Go around the crowd. It will take you an extra 2 minutes. An extra 2 minutes to go around everybody. If you get in a situation where you're in the middle and you have to maneuver, slow down. Slow down. Okay? And keep your eyes going forward. If you want a spotter to figure out where the fish are, that's totally fine. Say, hey buddy, your job, tell us where the nets are. I need to focus on driving and pay attention to where I'm going. Okay? But go around people. Go around. If you're in a tight crowd, bring the throttle way down and cruise your way through there. Okay? Safety resources. Somebody asked a question, kind of, I think you were alluding to maybe potential liability or responsibility of the Coast Guard. Like, how much of it is on them, right? I'll tell you right now, zero. Zero is the answer. I'll put it plain and Jane. You want to fight the U.S. government? Knock yourself out. You and I, we ain't got enough pennies in that piggy bank to fight that battle, okay? But what happens is you need to know the route to go in, okay? Coastal tow. You guys know what coastal tow is? You see the boat out there every now and again? Okay? I have this information. If you want it, come get it from me from the end. So if you're ever out there, say you lose power, you drop anchor to stay stationary, that's who you call. You run out of fuel, that's who you call. Coast Guard will say, number one, are you under power? And if your kicker is under power, okay. So it'll be a long drive home. You know what I mean? If somebody is assisting you, say in tow, and even if it's going to take them 5 million days to get you home, that's what it's going to take, okay? So coastal tow is a really good resource for things that you might have slipped up on, or you have an electrical issue or whatever it might be. So I have that information for you, okay? Any questions about that first part of the safety? Nope. Planning resources. We went over this in the last summer. Where do we go? Here, you took off, okay? Tides, winds equal success. Here's some helpful apps that I use. There's the tide graph, there's Wind Hub, Fish Tracker, Windy, Buoy weather. We're only going to go over a couple of them here. Tide graph. This is how I kind of plan my day. Where I'm going to start, how big the tides are, where I should be and where I shouldn't be at different times. So let's take August 1st. Okay, at 5:15 in the morning, we have a negative 0.7 tide with a high tide at about noon of 5.7, and then after that, that outgoing tide is only in an exchange of 2.5 feet, which really isn't very much. Okay, so for me, I'm going to go, okay, we got some fish in the ocean that should be pushing in. That's not a huge push by water to push those fish into the system. So I'm not going to start way up by the bridge. I'm going to start down a little bit lower. I'm going to probably start there from Desmond Sands, the checkerboard, everyone calls it checkerboard, yeah? You guys familiar with that term? Checkerboard, and work my way out that direction. Probably start right there, probably at about 6:30 in the morning, 6 in the morning, pointer west, and it'll slowly let me out, and then it'll slowly start pushing against you to where it slows you down, okay? You'll probably get a couple of laps in there. As you're going out, and there's still an ebb chop, because I consider that area still bar influence. If you start getting an ebb chop, once you start feeling that you're not comfortable, come right back. Okay? The second part to the equation that we were talking about in the seminar, the experience part, that's how you're going to gain that experience. Put yourself on that bar in a safer position to start with, opposed to going, I'm going to go out there on a 8-foot exchange. Okay? So start easy, work your way in there, gain that experience. Say for example, like, I'm going to take Friday off. Oh, never mind, Friday's a bad example of 16th. That's the same exact as that position there. So go through and look at those positions, or excuse me, the tide exchanges. The 1st and the 16th are almost exactly the same. So for me, I'm not going to be fishing what I would call, again, Desmond Sands to Buoy 10 during those 2 sets of days, okay? So use your tide charts to determine where you want to fish a little bit. Again, we're going to touch a little bit more in depth on that here in a sec. Okay, we were talking about wind a little while ago, correct? Wind and swell. Wind hub, I just started using this about a year ago. And it's pretty comparable to windy. Again, they're all forecasted, and so there's certain variables that they're not going to be able to touch on. But what I do is I'll generally use a couple apps and I'll cross-reference them and take an average. And when I have an average of 3 or 4 apps telling me the same thing, that's pretty good. What concerns me sometimes is when I have apps conflicting, then it kind of puts off a little bit of a red flag in my mind. I'm like, hey, maybe I don't need to be in those positions that could be questionable. So then I kind of move to plan B, if you will, a little bit safer area. Things to pay attention to though, and I can only scroll so far down on this, but wind direction and swell direction. When you have those two things colliding or going with each other, the water is going to be completely different. Okay? One of the things I always say when you're dealing with wind is go against it to start. If you go against it to start, you can come back with it. Okay? It's going to be an easier ride coming back with it. When you go against it to start, and you're like, this is miserable, okay? But you get there, you're going to be able to come back. If you start your day going with it, and you're like, this is kind of cool and easy, but then you got to come back against it. You don't know what you have to come back against, all right? And it's always changing, correct? So if you have a forecast with the wind going consistently for a day or two the same direction, I'll lean on that forecast, I'll invest in it and say that's probably going to be accurate. But I always start going against it. We do have variables here on the coast, right? That wind changes in the afternoon. I look at Portland like, man, Portland's going to be hot today. You're ready, here she comes in the afternoon. Okay? Take a look at those type of variables that might not be forecasted, but we know when we have hot temperatures in the valley and not so hot out here, you better believe that wind's going to pick up, right? Like you're saying, you become kind of a part-time meteorologist, right? And so that's one of the things you got to pay attention to. So maybe you know it's going to be 100 degrees in the valley and it's only going to be 75 out here at the coast, but the wind forecast says nothing about a west wind. Something's up. Something's up. Somebody missed something. Okay? Pay attention to those things. We're all adults. We're all taxpayers, so I'd like to think we're all responsible. That's one of the things that you just have to look into yourself, pay attention to yourself. This is a resource. That's all it is. All it is a resource. You have to, over years, develop your own data, your own resources, your own mental resource, your own experience. Yeah? All right, here's how I break down that river. This kind of goes into the pre-planning, where I want to start my day, where my best chances are to catch fish, location, 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 location. Okay, let's talk about Section A. Section A I call, and these are generic lines, and I'll be straight up honest. I accidentally put this line on there, and I didn't know how to take it off, so it's just on there. It don't mean shit. That line don't mean shit, but I don't know how to take it off. So, and my kids were asleep, so I couldn't ask them, you know. So there you go. But these other ones, these other 3 lines, they have some value behind them. Okay. So Section A, checker point out to buoy 10. In those areas, again, soft tides. That's when I'm going to be out there. Okay. I generally go with it on a soft tide. When I am out there, and it's going to be a strong tide, I make sure I start out there at the low slack. So everything that I'm going to be up against is coming towards me, which as we know, is going to be our safer time to be crossing that bar on that incoming tide. So it's a safer time to be in that zone A. Okay, so soft tides, I fish it going with the tide. Strong tides, I hold against. I hold into that pressure. All right? We'll get into the gear in a little bit. But those are the 2 ways that I fish zone A based on the tide. You can take this information and plug it into that calendar, that tide calendar that I was talking about. So I usually take 4 Sharpie markers, different colors, and I mark out my tide book of where I'm going to start. I usually do that in January. Section B, Desdemona sands all the way to the bridge. And this holds true for both sides of the river. Both sides of the river, Washington and Oregon is what I mean, generally fish the same. Sometimes they do take one pass, sometimes they take the other, sometimes they take both. Okay? I have not been able to figure out why they go to one side or the other. Mark, do you know?
Nope, if I did, I'd turn it off.
Bingo. But they just do. They just do. Both sides hold fish very, very well. You know, we have, in front of Young's Bay, we have that little bit of closure, so it reduces some, it reduces some area to be able to fish, but you have that whole ham and sawdust area that fishes very, very well. In that section B, what I'm looking at is the end of an outgoing. I fish that deep water at the end of an outgoing and I go with it. Okay? That could be a little bit of a challenge for people. When I say challenge, you can tangle a lot of gear. Okay? But it can be so productive. That is one of the only times when that tide starts to slow down as you're going with it in that 40, 50, 60 feet of water, that you could get your gear on the bottom. I mean, get it on the bottom. I'm going to show you guys something. All these drills have a line counter, yeah? Believe it or not, they go past 45 feet. Okay? I know a lot of people are like, oh man, that's out there a little ways, bro. I'm like, put the shit on the bottom. And they're like, it's at 75. I go, yeah, I know, keep going. Like, yeah, but it's at 80. Is it on the bottom? No. They keep going. And the look on their face is just mind-blowing. There's a lot of line on there. The line counter goes like, at least to 999, you know what I mean? Put her out there. But that's where I fish that deep water, and a lot of people are afraid of fishing that deep water. Don't be afraid of it. Get 20 ounces of lead on there and get it down there. You gotta go pretty slow to get it down there, and usually it takes me probably from here to the end of the building before my gear is set and we're fishing. But be patient with it, it will pay off, okay? Another time I fish section B. End of a strong incoming. So when I've been out in section A and we got to push a fish in there and we're hitting them, all of a sudden it peters out on us, that heavy tide pushed them by you. Okay? So pushed them by you, now they're behind you. Okay? Go up there and find them again. The hard part, this is the hard part, how far did they get pushed? Because then when you turn around and sit against it, if you didn't go far enough, you're still sitting behind them. If you sit way in front of them, they'll eventually get to you, but you might have to wait. Okay? So give yourself plenty of room when you're going through there. And that's where we fall into we get in trouble when we're driving, we start looking for the nets, right? Because we're like, how far did those fish go? So have somebody doing that for you on your boat. Go, hey, when you see people netting fish, let me know. I'm gonna focus on driving. Okay? So that's section B. Any questions about the first two sections there? Yes?
Have you heard the Washington side current is a little softer than the Oregon side?
Yes, absolutely. 100%.
So on the big tides, I personally favor the Washington side, but it's kind of easier to fit.
That's a very, very good point, and that's a good general rule of thumb that I did not cover. But yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, do not be afraid on those heavy outgoing tides where nobody wants to fish in the morning. Do not be afraid to go out there and hold against it the opposite direction. Anywhere you find a shelf that grows all into deep water, those fish are holding right on the edge of that shelf. So, to your point, I'll give you an example of last year. There, well, right where my boat sank, right there, right at that spot where it goes from 20 to 80 right there, okay? Strong outgoing tide. I started coaching football last year, so I didn't have a chance, I didn't even have the opportunity to start late. I had to start at 6 in the morning every day to be done by 1:30 every day. Like, guys, we just got to fish the tide, that's all it is. So So I went up there on that shelf, pointed it straight due east. And that thing, and I'm like, and I mean, the rods were cranking. As soon as we back up to that edge, whack, whack. I mean, violent bites. You got to remember, when you're talking about these fish, we know it is upriver and downriver. Fish only know pressure. That's all they know. That's how they swim. They stick their nose in the pressure, and that's the direction they're facing, right? So, to us, in a river, we're like, well, let's go downhill on them to put our gear in front of as many fish as possible. Yeah, yes, absolutely, that's accurate. But if you're traveling 7 miles an hour downhill, it don't mean nothing. So they're facing that direction. There's no different between facing upriver and backing your gear into them down here than doing it at Bonneville with pigfish. We're sitting on anchor. It's the same exact presentation. It looks a little bit different because we're trolling into them, back trolling into them, but it's the same exact concept. Okay? So think outside the box a little bit when it comes to certain scenarios like that. Section C, bridge to tongue point. This has got to be like my favorite section. It really does. When it comes to fishing them, the low exchange, well, let me back up. The low exchange, not in a negative situation. So when we have those softer tides, when we get to that high, and maybe we're coming out of the steeper tide, and we know it's going to drop, but not as aggressive. On the peak of that one, where it pushed it all the way from zone A to zone B, now pushed it all the way up to zone C, I have this rule in my mind, and whether this is accurate or not, I don't know. But my theory is, when they hit that bridge and they make it into the ships, once they hit East Basin Marina, they've committed. They're going. Okay? Anything that gets pushed to the bridge potentially could get sunk back out. But up there, they're going. So they mill around in there on that high tide. So I will go with it at the top of that high tide after I fished A, B, and I'm following upriver. And now I'm going up there through the ships. And as soon as that turns, we turn it and we bring it right back downhill. And you will find out very quickly if those fish are going or sucking back down. As soon as you find those fish, I suggest turning back around and get back on them again. Okay. Get back on them again. If you don't, on that second pass, you have not hooked one. Where you hooked one last, keep on going downhill because there's the chance that they're getting sucked out again. And that's again on the outgoing tide. And you'll find it. Figure out where you hooked the second one. Was it further up or was it further down? Okay? Now you gotta have confidence in what you're doing too, right? Because when you're doing it, we've been doing it long enough, I know we should get them where we should get them. And sometimes, yeah, we might miss them or whatever, but you got to be able to know that I'm going to get them if they're there. I'm going to get them if they're there. And we'll go over the gear in a little bit to make sure you're using the right stuff. Okay? High exchange. So again, at the high exchange, I'm going with it in section B, or in section C, excuse me. I'm going with it. Again, section C is from the bridge all the way up to tongue point. I usually don't go all the way up to tongue point in section C. The furthest I go is, I mean, pretty dang close, I guess. I mean, the last ship up there, it all fishes the same, but you generally don't have to go that far. And those ships move, by the way. I don't know if you guys noticed. Not always, the last ship's not always the last ship. Okay. Okay, section D, tongue point and above. Tongue point and above, I really wait for those really big tides in the morning. And when we get a couple consecutive ones, that's when I go up to tongue point in the morning. And anytime I go up to tongue point, for me personally, I like fishing tongue point and above during the morning hours. So when I see those big exchanges early in the morning, same exact concept, right? That tide in the morning before anybody was awake down the dock, it already pushed them through section A, pushed them to sections B, pushed them to section D, and all of a sudden they're going to be up there at tongue point waiting for you right at that can, right off the point. All right? Tongue point, I always fish with the tide. And again, you got the big steep tide. When it comes down to a lesser of a tide exchange, that's when I'm up there. And I go strictly with the tide. I have fished against it sometimes, and we do okay. but generally speaking, going with it up there fishes a little bit better. On the big tides, I do not fish it when we have a really heavy exchange going out. And the reason I don't is because it flushes a lot of debris out. So you get all that debris up there on that heavy outgo. So I just stay out of there because I get frustrated and want to throw everything in the water. Okay? Any questions? Yes?
How do you fish the north side of the sea? That there just seems to go from deep water, super shallow, so fast, so weird.
Where at, I'm sorry?
Section C.
And shipwreck.
Yeah, are you asking on the Washington side?
Yeah.
Like, how do I know? Or,
Yeah, there's like mud run through there, it's just.
yeah, it can get real ugly real fast. You're absolutely right. So, Mark, I need your help here. Because again, I'm from Eastern Oregon. You guys want to know something about catfish and mule deer? I got you. Okay. But this channel that comes through here, Mark, the bridge crossing, what's that called?
Dangerous.
Other than dangerous.
Every year.
What was that from? Why
That
did
was
it?
actually the old ferry channel, before there was a bridge, there was a ferry that went across there.
Okay.
We live in the land of shipping sand, that channel moves every year.
Correct.
You're gonna go do that, do it at low water, make a track on your GPS, make sure you know where it's at.
Bingo. Okay. Yeah, the ferry channel. Blind channel is different.
Blind channel's up above.
Blind channel is actually something we fish way up there. Okay. But that is the best advice to mark that channel. Let me think, how many years ago? Probably about 12 years ago, I marked that. I breadcrumbed it. I marked it. It's never left my charts. It's been there since then. Okay. And it does move a little bit, but for the most part, well, for 12 years, it's done me right.
I've been to guys park my boat in Saltwater.
Yeah, they got, yeah, and then they usually have clam guns.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly. But hey, I'll tell you, when you're going through there for the first time,
Go slow.
number one, don't follow people. Okay, do not follow people. Do your own research. All right. Electronics these days are pretty dang accurate. The charting on them is pretty dang accurate. Okay? If you know how to read your charts properly, then you can pick your own way through there. Do not, if you are new to that, do not go through there on plane. Do not go through there on plane. Thinking the faster I go, the less water I draft. That just means it's harder you're going to hit the sand. Okay? So take your time, because yeah, if you're going through there and you're tiptoeing through there, trust me, you're going to know if you're in shallow water. You're going to look down and you're like, oh boy. You know what I mean? But you're not putting yourself in a dangerous situation. You're not putting your passengers in a dangerous situation. You could always hit reverse in that. Okay? I have buddies. God, I love my buddies, but they're idiots. I see my buddies at the dock with wet pants. What are you guys doing? Oh, dipshit over here thought he could cross the sands the way you do. And before you knew it, I was in the water like pushing us off the sand. But they weren't up on plane. Up on plane, they would have been in big trouble. So tiptoe your way through there until you find that channel, mark it, breadcrumb it, and then away you go, okay? To give you an idea, it does come out here a little ways past the can, okay? And then you hit it and you sharp turn it back here. And what's going to be your port side of the boat as you come back, that port side is, I mean, it's a sheer drop off. That thing goes from sand to, I don't know, 18, 20 in there, okay? So hug that port side a little bit more than hugging your starboard side as you're coming across and coming back to that bridge until you hit the bridge and then zoom it right back up, okay? Okay, any more questions about that? Nope. Make sure I got everything there. Oh, that's not right. Oh, come on. Sensitive little bugger. Okay, let's talk about the fun stuff, man, the gear. Oh, where did I start with the gear? Man, let's start with inline. Let's keep it simple. what was it, 10 years ago, before I screwed everything up for everybody, life was simple. And only, what was the saying? 10% of the people catch 90% of the fish? Something like that. And we did it with inline presentation, which inline is good old I-5 tangle. Inline presentation, inline triangle. Use anywhere from a 9 to 10.5 foot rod. It really, the way I determine rod length is how big is your boat. If you don't have a very big boat, don't use a 10.5 foot rod. It's gonna be hard to net a fish. Okay? Just have something ample to support what you got going on. Good reels, good line counters. There's a lot of different rods on the market, a lot of different reels on the market. Biggest thing I could say is number one, make sure it has a good line counter. Okay. Number two, 65-pound braid, fill it up to the top. It drives me bonkers. I mean, super bonkers when I see an average of $150,000 worth of truck and boat in the parking lot, and then a guy goes, man, that tough line is expensive. I didn't want to fill it up all the way. Fill the damn thing up, all right? Okay? So you fill it up to the top, and that way, when you're putting out multiple rods, you have accurate depths between all your rods, okay? Come down to our line lock right here. All right, you could use a dropper, no dropper, whatever you like. I do like using a dropper on the inline presentation so I can find the bottom. 14-inch bumper. Just make sure your dropper is going to be shorter than your bumper, especially in that zone B when I'm fishing that deep water and I wander along the bottom. Okay. Make sure that this is longer so that you don't create tangles, because if this way hits and goes around, it's no big deal. But if your flasher's way up here, the way it hits, tangles around your flasher, and then you're all boogered up. Okay? Triangle flasher, come down to leader, lots of different varieties. Lots of varieties. Okay? This right here is just one of our hoochie spinners with one of our blades. This one's called Armageddon. I hate this blade. Everybody loves it. They think it's the greatest blade in the world. I can't catch anything on it. It pisses me off. But super popular blade. All right? This rig right here, you can put an anchovy just the way the charter boats do. Put it in the back hook, coil it up, put the next one in there, put a little bend in your anchovy, makes that thing spin, drives the fish crazy. Really good presentation. You can go also with a straight herring. One of my favorites is our 3.5 Cascade. Our 3.5 Cascade to me is probably our most versatile blade down here. I could put it in front of an anchovy. I could take that spinner and just clip it on here and be done with it. I could put it behind a 360. A lot of different options for the inline stuff. People ask me all the time, the length of leader, length of that bumper. Here's what it comes down to. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm like the tourist that has a clicker on there. When you reel your rod tip up like this, your gear, your lure should not come back down past your handle. If it's longer than that, you're going to probably catch the fish. Good luck netting it. Okay? When you go to net a fish, here's the way you net a fish. Okay? You guys know the way it is. When that rod goes off, everything I told you at the dock about how to handle a fish, it's gone. It's chaos. It's fun, right? That's the point. So here's what happens. Number one, the guy with the net, you're at the stern of the boat. The guy with the rod is on the other side of you. All right? The guy with the rod is not by the motors. Trust me. Okay? When you're reeling a fish in, and it's the moment of truth when you're going to net this fish, simply keep tension on the line and slowly guide the fish to the surface. Slowly guide the fish to the surface. Because, I'll tell you what happens. I don't care what animal you are, if I pull on you, you're going to pull back. Yes or no? So you got Tom over here with the fish on, you got Larry with the net over there, and Larry's like, lift up, Tom, lift up, Tom. Tom's like, I got him, and you just see him just yanking on the thing, the fish is just thrashing in the water. And what does Larry do? Goes dipping the net into a thrashing fish. Boom, fish comes off. They don't talk the rest of the day. That's it. Okay? That's it. That's what happens. Yeah. So at the very end, when you got tension on this thing, you slowly, just keep tension on it, slowly lift them to the surface and guide them to the surface. When you just guide them to the surface, put the net around. That's how I got my wife. Okay? All right? So, that's inline stuff right there. Pretty simple. The inline stuff, when I'm fishing the really deep water and I want the gear on the bottom, this is my go-to. Okay? There's less resistance, very effective. Very, very effective. The 360 stuff is not the fix-all. All right? Heavy tides, or I want it on the bottom, I still use this a lot. Okay? Generally speaking, I put it on my bow rods though. I put it on my bow rods. If I'm fishing the deep water, I put them on one side of, I'll say the starboard side of my boat, and then the port side will fish 360s to fish them both, to see what the fish want. When people say you can't fish both of them at the same time, that's a lie. Okay? It just takes a little bit more practice is all it takes. Now, here's what I did that really screwed up the whole industry. And this has actually been around way before me. But again, I was from Eastern Oregon and I wasn't catching any fish, so I didn't care whether you do put this on and not catch fish too. It's not going to change anything there. So, 360s. Oh boy. Very simple. Same exact setup, same rod, the whole gamut. Okay. Line lock, I do not fish a dropper when I'm doing my my 360 game. How many of you are not familiar with my line lock? Do I need to just explain the purpose of that? Okay, so what the line lock is, it's a slider that goes up and down your line that attaches the weight to it. But because of this dang thing right here, creating so much rotating and spinning, what was happening is all of that twist was transferring into, it was bypassing, after the 6-speed chain swivel couldn't keep up, it was bypassing it and coming into your braided line. Well, braided line is just like a tap. Once it twists so much, it just gets to the point where it's super tight and then it just goes ding, and everything breaks off. Okay? So with the line lock, not only is it a sliding weight holder on her, we machined the slot in the back to slide over the eye of the swivel so that all of that twist is absorbed into that 6-speed chain swivel. Okay? Then we have our 18-inch bumper. We have 18s and 24s. I don't know. People ask me all the time, what's a bumper to use? I have never not used 18-inch bumpers. Since the time I started doing this, I use 18-inch bumpers. I am here to tell you, we sell 4 to 1 24-inch bumpers. So the majority says 24-inch bumpers. I use 18. Okay? I caught like 3 last year, so you guys should listen to me. Pro Troll 700. Okay? Don't ask me about color, don't ask me about which one. Pro Troll 700. Go out there and buy every one that they have on the rack, because I'm going to if you guys don't. Alright? This is hands down my favorite. The all chrome. I don't get too carried away with all the colors. I feel like in the inline flasher game, that definitely makes a difference. When it comes to the Pro Trolls and the other 360s on the market, I've always felt that chrome has just always done me right. Now here's one thing to take into consideration. Pro Troll over time has played with the different primers underneath the chrome. And if you have one that's getting bit, look, that one got bit by a shark. It has this one. Has teeth marks in it. But if you have one where the chrome is flaking off, and it used to get bit really good, and all of a sudden you're not getting bit, change it out. Change it out. I have seen it time and time again, where that edge, when the edge rubs off, as this rotates, sure, we all see this profile, we all see this profile, but that edge puts out a profile that is very important. Very important. Way overlooked. People go, man, it's just a bad day. Switch that thing out and see what happens. Okay? That is one thing to keep in mind. I know the Super Series from Short Bus, they have done a better job with the chroming to where it doesn't flake off as much. But depending on which primer they put on the Pro Troll, the white one I don't mind. The green one, as soon as I see that green, I take that thing off right away. Right. For some reason, the ones with the light green primer underneath, once that primer shows along that whole edge, I just don't give it a bit as well. That's all there's to it. Okay. Come down here. I love the Mighty Mini stainless steel swivels. Leader length down here varies for me. Anywhere from 25 to 30, 36 inches. So average up here I use 31 inches consistently. And you can do a variety of different things. You can do just tie on a good old-fashioned spinner, which I do a lot of. We also have our pre-tied noosh leaders, which are 2 hooks fixated about 1.5 inches apart, 4/0, 40 pounds. I think we got a pile of them out there on the rack down there, Mark. Okay, and then you could put whatever configuration you want on there. You want to do beads, you want to do hoochies, you get creative, you do you, and then a clip, and then whatever blade you want on there. And out here in this fishery, guys ask me quite a bit, like, well, how do you know which one to use? And it's the same exact, or it's one of the variables of why I know when to go from a Colorado to a Cascade blade. When I catch a fish, and I put it on the deck, and I smash it in the head, the first thing I do is I look at the direction that spinner is sticking out of that fish's mouth. Okay? If I caught it on a Colorado spinner, there's a good chance that fish is hooked from the center of the jaw to the back. And they came up beside it, they looked at it, and they turned on it. If I catch a fish, and that fish has the spinner sticking from the front half forward, and the spinner is sticking out this way, he came up behind it, swam up on it, chewed on it, grabbed it, hooked himself. So, when I see that spinner or lure in the corner of the mouth, I go to a Colorado blade. The Colorado was originally designed to rotate closely around the shank of your spinner. It's designed for fast water, low friction. Less friction. Less drag, excuse me. But in doing that, it has a really nice profile from the sides and from underneath. And if you think about the anatomy of the fish or other animals that like to be eaten, their eyes are on the side of their head, right? So they come up beside it, they look at it beside them, whoop, they turn on it. But when those fish start to track, and you guys probably see it now, I don't have live scope, I'm not fancy, okay? I have a good old fish finder. But sometimes we see that red streak come up, and they're like, oh, we're gonna get bit, we're gonna get bit. And all of a sudden the streak goes like, right, and he's gone. Like, what the heck happened? So a lot of times when that happened is that fish came up behind it, it saw that lure, or the dodger got its attention, it's tracking that lure, but that Colorado blade is laying down against that shank, so when they're tracking behind it, they lose it, because there's no profile for them to track. So that's why we came up with the 3.5 Cascade in 2017. Think about every shallow water fishery, Tillamook Bay included. What kind of blade was it? A big one, yes. But what was the style of the blade? Cascade. That blade, because of the Cascade, which the Cascade has the tip on the bottom, whoop, it kicks it up away from the shank of the spinner. In Tillamook Bay, we all used to love slackline bites. Who's ever experienced a slackline bite? Awesome. I mean, awesome. So what happens, you're trolling in shallow water in those areas, those fish start tracking. And back in the day when we had like the big thumpers, we had the Mulkey 6.5, I think that thumper even got up to 8, didn't it, Mark? Got up to a size 8, that Tolman thumper. And those fish come up behind it and they just go woof. They stick it in their mouth and they keep swimming with it. So you watch that rod tip go like this and you go ping. You like set the hook, wham, and fish on it. Okay? Because they had something to follow. But those fish were concentrated to a certain depth of water. They couldn't go deep because of shallow water fishery. So when I'm out here fishing the Columbia in the deep water, number one, where's that spinner sticking out of his mouth? Number two, if I cannot get a fish to come out of a certain depth, if I just have my 35 rods getting bit or my 25 rods getting bit over and over and over, but no other rods are getting bit, I clip on Cascades to that water column because for whatever reason, they just don't want to come out of there. They're comfortable there. So give them a blade that's going to be invasive to their space. Okay, and that's going to be our Cascade. All right? Yes?
With all this blade change out that you're talking about, what kind of clevis are you using?
I use the white detachable clevises.
Do you use a fresh white plastic ones? Do you use
Okay,
blade?
yes, absolutely. So tackle, speaking as a blade manufacturer, keep using that.
Yeah, right.
Okay? No. But here's what I tell people all the time because I get that question consistently. What I am religious about is changing the clevis. Because I use that white detachable clevis that you're talking about, and I don't lose very many blades at all. As a matter of fact, I have a gold Mexican hat that has killed, I can't tell you how many fish out here, that has only been fished on a plastic clevis for the last 4 years. So what I do is, Mark, would you do me a solid? In my truck there, in the passenger seat, would you grab me those leaderboards that I have out here, please? Because what I like to do is switch that blade in and out until I find the color of blade that I want, right? As soon as I feel that plastic gets soft and it's easy to switch the blade, you're going to lose that blade. So instead of losing a fish getter, throw that clevis away that costs you 20 cents. You know what I mean? But you have to take the time to switch the clevis, right? And that's what a lot of guys don't want to do. You know, you just want to keep on going, keep on going, keep on going, right? But switch the clevis out. You switch the clevis out, you will lose a fraction of the blades. Again, I don't lose very many blades at all. But I do get that phone call all the time. Like, what clevis? Dude, just switch your clevis. Switch your clevis, switch your clevis, switch your clevis. Keep them fresh. Anytime I catch a fish, that clevis goes in the trash. And I put a new clevis on. Every fish. Every fish. So, I've tried the metal ones. We sell the metal coil ones. They're good. What I don't like about those is that they catch every little piece of grass. They do get a little warm. I think they burn the line a little bit. But my biggest concern is they catch grass and it stops the blade from spinning. And that plastic clevis that I just showed you there is hands down my best go-to to know that my blade is performing the way I need it to blade. Number two, if we have a blade that catches you a few fish and then you lose it, that's a pretty good trade. A few fish for a $3 blade, right? That's a good trade. So here's exactly what I do though, guys. We were talking about that niche knot leader. So I just pre-wrap them on the board like this. Okay? And then I'll use this, I catch a fish, as soon as I hit the net, smash them in the head, I cut all this stuff off, I put it on my dash, I'll leave the hooks, I'll throw the leader away and save the hooks, okay, if they're still in good shape, and then all that goes right back on here with the new clevis. Okay? And then I go through leaders and hooks like you would not believe. I go through, and that's why we started 3-time leaders, because with the soft spinner game, you could go through, I don't know, I go through a lot of those in a season, you know, and then they lend themselves very well to hard baits as well, like the super baits. This is our same exact leader. We use our micro tubing, 8mm bead, slide that down on there, that butt comes right down to the end of that, away you go. Okay. So, yeah, the amount of leaders that I go through, or what I believe people should go through, will save you a lot of headache of losing fish, losing your favorite lures, your blades, whatever it is. Okay. Any questions so far? No? Because they're either really bored with me or I'm doing a good job. We'll call it 50-50. How about that? Okay? Spinners and hard baits. So hard baits, again, are super baits, our spin fish, both of them very, very good lures. Okay? I always got to make adjustments. Yes?
When would you do the willow blade? Because you the snap here.
Yeah, so the willow blade is what I call our cascade blade.
Oh.
Yeah, the Colorado, here, let me show you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the Colorado is the rounded bottom, and then the willow is what we call a cascade. Yeah. So the cascade I was talking about, you know, fish tracking a certain depth or spinners sticking out the front of their mouth. Okay. Anything else? I think that's it. So listen, I'll stick around. around. You guys could ask me any questions about anything you want about fishing buoy 10 or football or whatever.
I see it.
What's that?
Quick one. I see a lot of Uchis. I mean, is that, are you seeing more and more? I mean, there's in the past, Uchis maybe haven't been as popular, but it seems to be, I see it more and more.
This fishery is hands down the most expensive fishery I take part in. Hands down. I go through more gear out there than any other place on the planet. And sometimes I will see them want a hoochie, even a certain shade of pink hoochie. Sometimes I will see them want, this is no exaggeration, I will see them want pink beads over red beads when I'm fishing that deep water. That is no BS. No BS. And I have tested it time and time again. And the pink and red, that one in particular, I've been testing that one for 10 years now because I still don't want to believe it. But if I put pink beads down there with the copper Randy, I'm going to whale it. If I put that same copper Randy blade with a couple red beads, same exact rod holder, same exact depth, same exact everything, they won't touch it. And I get pissed off, I move that one to the center, and I put that pink one back down because I'm switching out my leader. I put the pink beads back down there. This is the most particular fishery that I have ever seen. Now, you have to, how long have you been fishing here?
Oh, 20 plus.
Okay, so you've seen it. You've seen it. You've seen 10 years ago. We were all good. 10 years ago, not good as reference because I was like 1.5 million fish that year. But the years before that, we have all seen it to where we come out and we catch some fish and it's a great day. And then all of a sudden, it's slow for a day. And only so many people caught fish. Same with the next day. Same with the next day. And all of a sudden, it gets really good and everybody catches fish. We have become that efficient now in catching to where we shouldn't have a bad day. Now there's so many options. This, hoochies, colored beads, hard baits, spinners, herring, anchovy. We got it all. You know, when the Department of Fish and Game starts talking about outlawing lures, we kind of nailed it. You know, so yes, I do see hoochies make a difference in certain applications. I've seen it when they don't want it. I've seen it, and I'm not kidding either, where they want an F2 hoochie over an F15 over an F44, which they're all shades of pink, but I've seen them gravitate to one. So if I could tell you one to fish, is the F or F2, and then I fished the F44, and then I fished the F15. Those are hands down my favorite ones. They do like chartreuse every now and again. I'm like anti-chartreuse, because I'm not a duck fan, but whatever. But they've done a good job of buying a team this year, though. I'll tell you that much. Yeah. Any questions? Yes.
How does water temperature affect what you're using between snares and anchovies?
I don't think. People say you gotta wait till the water's 52 degrees or some bullshit. I catch springers all the time with spinners. I think the lowest I've ever caught was, what was it, 42.8. Yeah. It's about presentation and profile. Presentation and profile is the majority of fishing. Okay? If you give it to them the direction they want, the speed they want, and it looks about right, they're gonna wrap their face around the beam. Anybody else? What? What about what?
Speed.
Speed?
Speed.
Oh, speed. Sorry, I don't hear very well. I haven't never edited for a long time, so it's speed. That's a tough one out here because, well, the speed of the water's always changing, right? And there's some times where I might be trolling at a slack tide at 2.5, 3 miles an hour, but then there's sometimes I'm like back trolling a little bit, right? I will say I do drag stuff around pretty fast. I make them chase it. I think, well, I know, my first adjustment that I make before switching gear out is my speed. and then I change my direction. You guys probably see me out there in the deep water all by myself, and they're like, what the hell is he doing? And there's sometimes I'm like going that way, and sometimes I'm going that way. And those are just the adjustments I'm making before I start switching out gear. If I can see them on my graph, I want to make them bite. Right? And I usually got something in there that we can make them bite. But adjust your speed. Don't be afraid to go fast. I've caught fish moving out of the way of one of the tankers. They're like, meh, meh, and I'm like, okay. And all of a sudden, Balrog's just like, I mean, they'll chase it. They will chase it, okay? So you can click them pretty hard. You know? Even right now, I was down at the Willamette, was it yesterday? Thursday? And everyone's like putting along, you know? I'm like, okay. And the rods are just like, woo, woo, woo. We got it. So, yeah, dig them a little bit.
24, go fast.
Huh? Yeah, exactly.
24, go fast.
Yep. Any more questions? Awesome. Hey, thank you guys very much. The last thing I will leave you with is we are all, every single one of us are out there doing the same exact shit. That means we all have one thing in common at the very least. The very least, we all love to fish. So I don't care if somebody's jamming up the ramp, or somebody's doing yay or you. Be kind to each other out there, number one. More importantly, help each other out. You got somebody at the ramp that's inexperienced and anxious, he's about to yell at his wife. And guess what? Then he's really going to get his ass chewed when he gets home. Help him out a little bit. Okay? It is not a crime to walk up to somebody and go, can I help you? It's not that hard. Right? So, practice that a little bit if you can. And well, we'll see you guys here in a couple weeks down here. So, thank you.
Englund Marine has a whale of a deal for you.